questions. Am I 100 years old? No, although sometimes I feel like it. Not really. Is this my, do I have 100 subscribers? Well, I do have a few more than that, although I never really expected or had any expectations in that regard. This is my 100th video. I never suspected that I would make this many videos. I figured I would run out of content way before then. I figured maybe if I was lucky I'd get 24 videos or something like that. But as it turns out, you know, the Amiga bug hit me hard. I wound up spending, you know, thousands of dollars on Amiga equipment, although a lot of them I'd fix up and resell and make my money back. So I do have a small collection of Amiga stuff. I don't have like 7 Amiga 1200s like some hoarders do out there. But anyway, I just thought I would congratulate myself. I don't know if anybody else is going to congratulate me, but you know, what the heck. I didn't expect to have 100 videos, and this is number 100. I have a few more that I'm developing that I'll be making soon, although I just don't know how much longer I'll have content. I've almost fixed everything. I've never worked on an Amiga 3000 or 4000. I guess if the opportunity presented itself, I would, but the likelihood is pretty rare, pretty low because of the rarity and expense of those particular items. But basically, the reason why I started, wait, let's first blow the candles out before they create a big mess of wax. Happy 100th video! There we go. So, anyway, I started the YouTube channel basically just to build my brand. I figured that if I had some street cred, people would be more likely to buy from me. I wanted to start selling Amiga stuff in my eBay store. I was already selling some other hobby stuff that I was making with 3D printing and other methods. I was making stuff to sell, mostly model train stuff. And but you know, I got a kind of an Amiga bug, and I decided I would start offering things that are unique. You know, I never really want to offer something that everybody else sells or everybody else has. In some cases I have, but it's just, you know, because they sell, I keep doing it. But anyway, it all started off by me selling the Amiga VGA and HDMI adapters. It's an all-in-one kit, and the thing that can distinguish it these days, because a lot of people are looking into the Raspberry Pi HDMI adapters, is that these don't require you to make any modifications because they're external units, and also because they're external units, you can migrate them from one. There's a fly in here. Migrate them from one Amiga to another. So those were my first two products, and then when I started selling these, people were asking, you know, can you just please sell the cord by itself? And I'm like, okay, I mean, you know, it's only going to work on certain things. It's not a buffered cable, so it's not going to allow you to hypothetically hook up an Amiga 1200 to a 1960 monitor. But, you know, so I started selling these, and I've been selling these too. I started making these and selling them as well. Then I was messing around with my A2000, and I said, you know, how do you put a SCSI to SD in a, you know, like on a hard card or something like that? The screw holes wouldn't line up. It was kind of weird. So I created this, which lets you put a SCSI to SD anywhere where a hard drive would fit. It has both the bottom mount holes and the side mount holes for hard drives, so you can put them in a hard drive cage or on a hard card or whatever. Then I came up with, I got into the Gotek world, and I started selling Goteks. And initially, when I first looked at it, I wasn't going to sell the Goteks because they just weren't, I wasn't going to make enough money for the effort that I was going to put into them. But you know, I'm pretty slow at work. Making a little bit of money on the side is better than no money, and it was the best decision I ever made. in regards to eBay, my eBay store, because I've sold more of these than anything else, even in that short period of time. And of course, I offer the 3 colors. I'll probably do a short video on the colors. There's a beige, a gray, and a black, and there's going to be some news upcoming about the beige. So we'll do a video on that, because every time Gotek changes something, I do a new video so that you know what's going on. But since then, I've come up with a design, based upon other similar open source designs, of an external adapter so you can hook up your Gotek externally on your Amiga. So I sell a kit there that just lets you plug it in. And the thing that differentiates my kit from others is that it's not one of the kits that has all these jumpers on it and lets you use a PC drive or configure it as DF2 or DF3. I just decided I would skip all that and just make it so that it'll just give you a single external drive. For people who want that, it's perfect. Another thing is that I used, the active logic on it. There are some of these that you can use, that you can get a hold of with just a straight through cable, basically. And that works fine with Gotek, but if you want to use like a real Amiga drive, that's no good. So I figured I would design and make one that let you could plug any drive, any Amiga drive and a Gotek externally on an Amiga. And another thing that differentiates this is that I include extra long cables, longer than anybody else seems to. And the way I do that, and here I actually sell them individually too. I sell the cables individually. People seem to want that as well. The big difference is that I've had them custom made to be 50 centimeters long. So it just never seemed, these cables never seem to be long enough, and other people are offering short ones. You can buy as many 4-inch or 5-inch ones as you need, but nobody seemed to have really long ones. So I started off with a 30 centimeter, which is like a foot long, and I still have a few of those left, but I also now offer the longer ones, and it comes with my Gotek that way too. And then in the course of me doing, again, my Amiga 2000, and wanting to put a Gotek in it, and realizing that the Gotek doesn't really fit, because an Amiga 2000 has, I guess you would call it a full height. Well, I guess you wouldn't call it a full height, because a full height is like this, a half height, I guess, and these are like less than half height. These are, I don't know what you'd call it, but these don't fit into an Amiga properly. There's a gap around it, and also the screw holes, the thing sits way down, and I don't even think the front of the case will go over it. So I came up with a bezel that includes standoffs that both lift the Gotek up and places it in the correct position, and it's a bezel that just fits around the outside for a clean look. So I sell that too. That pretty much, and then the last thing I did was to create a replacement Amiga 501. I did a video. I've done a video showing my usage of all this stuff. I did a video specific. I haven't done a video specific about any other items except for the Goteks and this, which is a replacement Amiga A501 circuit board that I have made, and I sell that in my eBay store. So it's not a huge amount of things, and I grow it slowly over the months. But I'm proud of my contribution to the Amiga community, which is I like to come up with actual fixes, and so when I come up with a solution, I certainly love to have it on video, and I've come up with, I wouldn't say it's 99 other solutions, but quite possibly, because in most of my videos I have more than one solution or fix or whatever in a lot of them. So anyway. I'm at over 1,500 subscribers now, which, I mean, it's only getting me a few dollars a month, but what the heck, a little bit helps. Every little bit helps, I should say, and I pretty much spend way more than that investing back into the YouTube channel. But anyway, so yeah, what else am I going to talk about? I don't know. I guess I could show some clips of my previous videos real quick and some kind of montage or something like that. But anyway. I decided more pushing, pressing, and touching was in order. I spent a solid 10 minutes doing that until I was able to get the symptom to change by a feather touch to the underside of the 6570 chip. Further light touching, and I narrowed it down to a specific area. It really seemed like there was a broken solder joint, but I had reflowed everything. I decided to go ahead and reflow again in that specific area using extra solder. And wouldn't you know it, the keyboard now works. The board is not quite the same size as a standard hard drive. The holes make no attempt to line themselves up. Looks like I will be making an adapter bracket with my 3D printer. Okay, so I 3D printed a bracket, and the way I made this was I made this frame, this outside frame, and then I made these posts or spacers separately. They're a place for the screws to pass through. I have refurbished my share of old electronics, and I really feel that the method of leaving it out in the sun leaves a lot to be desired. Why depend on the weather and other variables when LED UV lights are less than $40 on Amazon? It's often worrying leaving important stuff outside all day. And what if you live in an apartment? What about sun angles and shadows? Peroxide baths are expensive and wasteful. The alternative peroxide gel has to be covered with plastic wrap to prevent it from drying out in the wind and sun, but it still dries and has to be reapplied. I prefer doing it inside in a controlled environment. It's just easier and more precise. Here's the big change I did. The buttons, I created a rocker switch for scrolling up and down, and the eject button is right next to it. And then the display is kind of in the same place. Turn the computer on. We got that clicking noise. Then we're going to go ahead and put the drive in. There. I'm pretty satisfied with the result. Right, I found the problem, and I found it by accident, sort of by plugging and unplugging the connector. Sometimes I actually got the voltage to come to the right level. And so it turned out to be that the connector was, well, I was thinking it was loose, but when I cleaned it out, like maybe I needed to replace the connector, but when I cleaned it out, it seems to be okay now. On this side, the damage is much more significant. We have probably 3 damage pads, and we have this circular area as though one of the screws was driven in to the board. Probably one of those longer screws was used in the wrong place and drove right into this board. So this switch will enable these jumpers to be shorted or open depending on whether it's a release 5 or release 6 and depending on the position of this switch. Now from the top side we can see one of the pins is out of alignment. It's not going to make a good connection to the Agnes chip. We want to pull it toward the center of the socket, and so all we need to do is create a little tool using a paper clip. If we just bend the end of the tool at a 90-degree angle and make it a really short little piece, we can get that underneath the pin and pull it toward the center of the chip. Well, we're going to need another Agnes socket. This one, somebody went at it with a screwdriver or something, because it's, I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a crack on this side and a crack on this side. You know, those are the 2 spots that you See right there. Those are the two spots that you wrench it out with that PLCC extraction tool. 3D printed a spacer so that it fits properly into the case. I had a blank cover for an Amiga 2000. I just put that in there. You know, measured that and made this roughly the same size. Well, pretty much the same size. So this comes off of this part here, and I have the drive screwed in here loosely. So another part that I 3D printed was standoffs. I did this on the Amiga 500 build, a couple of them now. The idea would be to screw these into this base plate and then situate the drive and glue it in. So there's the finished product. With the release of the Amiga A2000, Commodore needed to offer an interface card that would add hard drive capability to its flagship computer. The first of these cards was called the A2090. It offered the ability to add up to 2 ST506 or MFM drives and 7 SCSI drives to the Amiga. However, this card did not have auto boot capability. The solution for this was to put the drivers on the controller card itself, and that's what Commodore did with the A2090A. So I needed to find out what the purpose of that resistor is. I noticed that it was within a bunch of logic chips, so it might be a pull-up resistor. So the first thing I tried to do is test it against VCC, which is pin 6. It's like the third one up here. And sure enough, the left side of this is on the VCC rail. And so that means that this is a pull-up resistor. So there's something on the right pad that is almost dead shorted to VCC, and that's not going to be correct. So I traced the right pad, and it just went into this chip that's right under it. Zoom in there again. This is a 74LS74 logic chip, and so I pretty much figured that that chip was bad. So I desoldered it, cleaned it up, put a socket in, and replaced it with one from my stock, and sure enough, and resoldered the resistor back in, and sure enough the resistor came up at 1.2K, and now this board works. So U16 is the one that has no signal, and that is right here, the column address strobe. So it goes down to that resistor that I showed you, that's 152C, and I tested from the RAM chip to 152C, and I had continuity. I decided to keep going and see if we have a continuity between that part of this resistor and Akiko. And sure enough, after double, triple, quadruple checking, triple checking at least, this has no continuity. I went and I tested all the pins. There's 160 pins on this. I went and tested 160 pins, and some of them were quite difficult because I had to put the probe on the other side, underside of the board, while I had the other end of the probe up here. I went all the way around. Here's my bodge wire for the one that I fixed, and you can see that there is another bodge wire. I got all the way around pin 153. I mean, basically at the end. When we look at the pin and how far it comes up, does it come up too far? So if you need to have it flush. You need to have it flush. If you don't have that spindle pin, the motor shaft, it's actually the end of the motor shaft. If you don't have that motor shaft flush on there, then what happens is this is raised up. I mean, there is supposed to be a little bit of a gap there, but this is too much of a gap. Imagine that you've gone online and found everything you want to load into your Amiga's hard drive. Most of it, if not all of it, is going to be in electronic format rather than physical. The question is, how do you get all that stuff from your Windows PC to a real Amiga hard drive? Well, this video should help you out with that. Using a Windows PC, you set up the drive and install everything you want, then simply take the drive and put it into your Amiga and you are ready to go. We got switched out Paula, and we checked the connections very carefully. Yeah, so we're going to give this a try. I cleaned it off with alcohol and let it dry for like 30 minutes before trying this. So. Oh my God. I was not expecting that to work. So my logic was correct. Paula was bad. The solution for this is simple. Add a 4.7 kilo ohm resistor between VCC and pin 1, and also hook our switched ground to pin 1. This makes pin 1 what we call an active low. In other words, normally high until we switch it low. Doing it this way also lets us have only one wire coming from our chip. I wonder if the motor's seized because I can't seem to move it at all. Okay, so in a place where it's kind of safe to do so, I'm grabbing down here and I'm rotating the shaft manually, and it doesn't rotate easily. I don't know why that would be. Let's keep an eye on that real close while I turn it on. There. Well, that worked. The motor was seized. Wow. It does turn out that I don't give up so easily. I had cleaned and demagnetized the heads to no avail. However, it is hard to give up on these classic computers, and I thought I should try to give it another shot. I thought I would use this opportunity to learn how to align the heads using an oscilloscope. Many people have used software to do this, but software can only see what the machine code sends it. This is not a very accurate way to align a drive. What I am looking for is closer to a manufacturer's QA method of drive alignment to maximize the drive's ability to read disks, even when they are worn or poorly written to. This is actually what I did. I actually, exactly as best as I could, replicated the Release 5 A501. And just as a piece of art, you know. So every little part on this, you know, the green doesn't quite match. It's not going to be a perfect replica, but everything is pretty much within a fraction of a millimeter where it should be. You can see that I managed to copy the Commodore signs and the locations. I kind of did some searches on the internet before I figured this out, and nobody mentioned anything about it, you know. But this external connector has no power on it. There's supposed to be 5 volts and 12 volts, plus 12 volts, coming to a, you know, to a drive connector, a DB23, to power the external device. And on this connector there is none. It's these 2 pins on the end here. So I came up with the idea of having a power supply with fused outputs to save myself the trouble of having to test for shorts before I power the device on for the first time. While I'm at it, I may as well put LED indicators on the outputs to indicate which rail might have an issue. So join me on my journey to create the ultimate testing power supply. Okay, so here we are with our power supply and a working Amiga 1200. That's an error because the ROMs that I have in here don't match the workbench that I have there, so that's why there's an error and it doesn't boot up all the way. But everything seems to be working fine. So yeah, we're done with our test Amiga power supply. I'm going to hang on to that one. Okay, so I actually found a pin on U18 that is an issue, although I'm not sure if this is going to fix the problem, but this pin right here, pin 21, it actually isn't making contact with the pad underneath it. It's one of the grounds that's coming off the chip. Okay, let's see here. Memory. Wow. Well, what do you know about that? Happy 100th video to retrofriends.com, and we'll see you next time.